Hello and welcome to the Puck Buddy Podcast. As you know, this is the Puck Buddy Podcast and we are your hosts. I have with me Cameron Che, Eddie Murad, and myself, Bo Hendrickson. We are the Puck Buddy Podcast. If I didn't mention it enough, we are the Puck Buddy Podcast. And we are here to provide you with, some good fantasy hockey insight. Let you know what's going on in the fantasy hockey world, which players are performing, which ones are underperforming, and who do you want on your fantasy team. So this is kind of a podcast that we're going to talk about, a couple of interesting facts, things that we've been noticing. We're also going to go through a couple of starts and sits today, and we also have a special segment that Cam wants to get into a little later. So I think we're just going to start it off right now with a segment Eddie put together. So what do you got for us, Eddie?
So this segment I'm naming after the great one, Mr. 99, and his famous quote, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." Everybody! You just got to take some shots. That's how teams score usually. And
doesn't matter what you take, like vodka, tequila.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Cool.
I'd prefer not tequila.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So if you really want to miss 100% of the shots you don't take,
then you take tequila shots.
Yeah.
You'll miss them all. But I thought these were some interesting facts that I was going to share with you boys and see, how the season's lining up, how the teams are starting to separate out from each other. And so here's one stat that's the top 5 teams who take the most shots in the NHL. And see if these sound familiar and if they should be at the top of this list. But the Penguins are at the top, number 1 with 197. Our San Jose Sharks are number 2 with 191. The Rangers are 3rd with 188. Flames are 4th with 188 as well. And then the Ducks are 184. So
say the Flames surprised me the most out of all those names.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's cool to see them up there. We did talk earlier about Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan just not performing, but a little more in-depth stat at the types of shots that are being taken by these Flames. If you look at the shots attempted per 60 minutes, and I don't mean ones that are just on net, but ones that could possibly be blocked, miss the net, etc. They are averaging 56.5 shots for and are allowing 53.7 against. Once again, these are attempts. So they are positive. So that leads me to say, but they're still positive on a 60-minute basis. I say it's, something that should be encouraging to those of you that have Monahan or Gaudreau on your fantasy teams because they are getting those shots off. It's just a matter of hitting the net and then getting it past the goalie at this point.
Yeah, and they've always had issues with their goaltending and them letting goals go in, and they have to overcome that deficit. So at this point, I think it's just puck luck sometimes, Sometimes it just doesn't go your way. You get enough shots, you get enough offense, it just doesn't happen. So with Gaudreau and Monahan, they're both talented enough to get it going. And hopefully that'll pay dividends with their shot totals. Hopefully they can climb it up and get some wins. That'll be good to see from them. At the top of the list, the Pens and the Sharks, the 2 Stanley Cup, rivalries, or the rivals. That's nice to see, and it shows in the standings. Like the Sharks, honestly, haven't been winning as much, but it shows that you shouldn't be worried. With the Pens and the Sharks, they're both top-tier elite teams.
And they're both positive in their shots for versus shots against attempts. So I think both of these teams, they're going to start scoring a bit more, both of them. So I'm not worried.
Yeah, you expect that. I mean, the Pens were number 1 in shots for last year. Right. I think they're going to be at the top again this year. So, expect them to be there the rest of the year.
Yeah. And moving on though, I just want to show who's at the bottom actually. And this year, it's very interesting to see who's at the bottom of the shot total count. And we start off with number 5 of the worst. It's the Stars with 137.
Surprising.
Then we go to Philadelphia with 136, the Avalanche with 126, Columbus, Cam, with 113, and then at the very bottom you see the Sabres at 103. And that makes sense. They've lost a lot of their offensive forwards with Eichel, Kane out, so that'll is a detriment to their offense. They just really need to get going. Unfortunately, they just can't do it, and having trouble all around as a team, and they need to really step up if they're going to try to get out of that bottom spot.
Yeah.
And it shows in their standings too, of course. So,
Yeah, but I think the biggest surprise on this list, no question, is going to be the Stars.
Right.
We know they have injuries, 7 forwards out, so that will probably change when they become healthy. Actually, I'm probably going to guarantee it. But as it stands right now, they actually have one of the biggest deficits for shots for versus shots against.
Yeah.
One more time, I'm going to remind you guys, this is shots attempted, not necessarily on net. But they are averaging 58.84, while they're allowing 64.1 against. That's a huge difference when it comes to a 60-minute average. So it's a little bit worrisome for Dallas until they get those players back from injury.
Yeah, Stars really aren't shining as brightly nowadays. So
Looking a little dull.
But if you look at what's interesting is even though they're in the bottom 5 right now, but if you look at last season's top 5 total at the end of the season, again you see the Pens as number 1. Number 2, you see the Los Angeles Kings,
Which we'll talk about in a moment.
yeah, and 3rd you see the Stars, which they get a complete 180. They're at the bottom right now. At the end of the year, the top 3 last year, as well, and then the rest of the top 5 are the Bruins at number 4 and the Flyers at number 5. So
Now, can I talk about the Flyers really quickly?
yeah, go for it.
So we mentioned that Philly is our 4th to last spot with shots taken 136. Look at these advanced stats. They are attempting 46.3 shots, on net, and allowing 53. So 46.3 to 53 against. That is a giant deficit.
Yeah.
So I'm a little worried about Philly. I know they're only 2-3 right now, but it may get worse.
Yeah.
They need to turn that around, especially my boy Gostisbehere.
Yeah.
I'd like him to get a few more shots and a few more points.
And your boy Neuwirth.
I mean, he's getting the shots against.
Yeah,
so that's
I'm okay
good
with that for the Neuwirth stats, but I also would just rather see them be winning. So
Yeah.
I do like Philly.
Yeah, I think for me the craziest thing with Philly is they've been averaging close to 3 goals a game on only taking 46 shots or attempted.
Yeah.
And that just shows like how crazy their efficiency is right now.
But
so they're
I don't
getting
know
it
if that's
done.
sustainable,
Yeah, exactly. It's not sustainable. So they're getting it done now, but how long will this be sustainable? I don't see it going the whole season.
Yeah. They're going to need to take more chances, more shots if they're going to need to keep up that production. And hopefully get some wins out of it, but
Yeah.
They need them.
yeah. So, but interesting teams to mention along the side. They weren't in the top 5 of any of my categories, but the Oilers sitting at number 7 with 173 shots. The Maple Leafs sitting in the number 10 spot at 169 spots, and the Kings sitting in 24th with 147 shots. As I mentioned last year, the Kings finished top 2. They were number 2 in the shots taken at the end of last year. And now they're 24th. They've got to the bottom of the list. They're struggling, as we mentioned before. They're having a lot of problems on the back end in their goalie situation. So it shows. I mean, the shot totals are showing where they're standing, and it's correlating very accurately to where they are.
Now, sorry to interrupt. I just want to say one of my advanced stats is actually going to, I think, surprise some of our listeners. So for shots for attempted versus shots allowed against, they actually are averaging the most, the biggest differential, positive differential, 66.8 shots for, 48.3 against.
Well,
so my question to you, as we talked in our last episode about Zakov and the Pete's, the Pete's, I think, or my question I guess is, are they really that bad, those goaltenders?
I mean, with that stat, it kind of switches it around a little to where it might be their goaltending at this point. They're getting more shots, and they're receiving less, but they're still losing. They're still letting in all these goals.
And my other question to you would be, does that take a toll on a team's confidence, right? Knowing that when the puck's going the other way, it's probably going in. That's probably not a great feeling to have when you're on the ice.
No.
Yeah.
As someone like Brown or Kopitar down low.
Or even, especially with like Doughty playing so well and not just having anything to show for it.
And Tanner Pearson, a goal a game, right? Since he's come back. And that's still not allowing them to win. That's a little worrisome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough going from someone like Quick, someone that you can rely on in any situation, no worries. Like the Kings aren't as able to be as aggressive as they probably want to be So it's puts a little bit of doubt in your mind that you got to always watch out for your goaltender, because I mean these goalies they're looking awful. They're allowing 3.6 goals against a game. Like that's not going to win you any games, especially when a lot of your shots aren't getting to the net. So
Agreed.
it's pretty tough for LA right now. Their goalie situation is definitely a sketchy one.
I think my only suggestion to the Kings would be rub that Buddha's belly and hope that Zakov can stop a puck. Because Peter Buddha and the Buddha in the belly, and you rub it a
I
lot.
totally thought you were talking about Dustin Brown for a second. I don't know why.
I wouldn't rub
I
Brown's
wouldn't
belly.
rub Brown's belly.
I don't know why I thought that.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about your?
The only other thing
Shouters.
with the interesting picks that I had with the Oilers and the Maple Leafs, they have made a complete 180 as well, and they were at the bottom of the league last year, and now they're at the top, and it shows again because the
good to see,
Oilers
yeah.
are 4-0-1 or 4-1 or something.
Yeah, they've only lost one game, and
Yeah.
they're leading the Pacific. But the craziest thing that I've seen with the Oilers is they average the most goals or the second most goals for a game.
Yeah.
So they're putting up 3.83 goals per game.
Yeah, it's a great stat. Not surprising to me, just because.
Yeah, but I mean that's how they're gonna have to win their games this year. They're gonna have to score more goals than the other team, much like any hockey game you play.
Right.
But they're not gonna be in these close 1-0 games, 2-1 games. They're gonna be putting up at least 3 goals a game in order to get a victory. So whether they'll be able to do that the whole season, that's still to be determined. But the Oilers are looking, they're looking good right now.
Yeah, it's good to see.
So yeah, I think that wraps up Eddie's 100% of the shots you don't take section, and we're gonna move on to something that Cam put together for us.
All right, it's time to take a quick lookie at some rookies. So I'm just going to mention the top 5 rookie performers to this point for the 2016-27 season. Now, week 2 just ended, so keep in mind this will change week to week. But right now, we have, no surprise, Austin Matthews as our number 1 performer. He has 8 points in 5 games. Coming in a close second, William Nylander. He has 7 points in 5 games. Patrick Laine has 5 points in 5 games, including a hat trick with the overtime game winner, which was an amazing, amazing game to watch. Number 4, Zach Werenski. We talked about him a little bit earlier. He has 5 points in 4 games. He was a healthy scratch in one of those games. And then number 5, I mentioned him earlier, Anthony Beauvillier, 5 points in 5 games. Now, we have the top 4 that I think are going to be able to maintain a similar pace throughout the season. Zach Werenski may find a little bit of a dip just purely because he's on Columbus, although he is with Seth Jones. But our 5th pick, Anthony Beauvillier, I think he's the rookie that gets the cookie for for a great effort in these past 2 weeks. But like I mentioned earlier, 4 shots, only 9 and change in average time on ice per game. I really don't foresee him keeping this pace up. So, those were our quick lookies at rookies. And, I think it's time we move on to the part that most of you fantasy listeners are going to find the most helpful in our starts and sits.
Yeah, let's hop right into those starts and sits. So with these starts and sits, we're kind of taking a look at a couple of the fantasy hockey heavy days within the week, and that's Thursday and Saturday. Those are the days where the most NHL games are played, where you're going to have to make decisions of whether to play this center over another center, or whether to play, or which goalie to play. So this is where most of your players will be performing that night, and you need to know who's going to be the best out of all of them. So let's hop right into it with a couple of goalies. So we got a Thursday matchup, and we're trying to decide between these 2 tenders right here. We're looking at Peter Mrazek at St. Louis, or Mr. Let Everything In, Mr. Letting In at Winnipeg.
So I think you already know who we're starting. Okay, let's move on.
I think I got a pretty good idea
with that name right there. Yeah.
I think the main question here is, I know we were hyping up Jimmy Howard in our last podcast. Do we expect Mrazek even to be starting? That's
the only question that would potentially make me want to put Lettinen in. But at the same time, I don't want to put Lettinen in.
So if they're both starting.
So yeah, I guess that's
theoretically, if they're both starting, Mrazek 100% would be my answer.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, Lettinen has the better stats right now. Not in the wins. Mrazek actually has more wins with 2, but his save percentage is a .912, and Kari Lettinen has 1 win with a .924 save percentage.
Yeah.
Interesting, but as we know, the Stars have huge injuries up front. They have not been putting up the wins that you want.
I think my issue is the injuries, just pure and simple. With Hemsky immediately right back out, that brings the injuries to 7, like we said. I cannot trust the forwards coming back, in front of Lettinen. I don't think it's going to be a pretty game for him.
Yeah, I mean they're playing Winnipeg. They can score.
Laine, man, I think he's starting to ramp up.
Yeah.
So, I think we all agree, though. Mrazek is the starter if he's not playing and you need a goalie, Lettinen, but, Mrazek is the better goalie all around.
So, make sure to monitor that once Thursday comes around, whether or not Mrazek is starting. So let's, I'm going to keep up with all the Thursday games, go through those first, and then we'll go right into the Saturday games. So another Thursday game that we're looking at, we're going to look at a couple of right-wingers. So the names I got for you is Dylan Larkin at St. Louis, Shane Doan at Philadelphia, Jaromir Jagr at Toronto, and James Neal at Los Angeles. So all these games are going to be played away.
Right.
So there's no home advantage. So let me hear 2 names that you would pick out of these 4.
I know mine right away.
All right.
I'm doing Neal at LA as my number 1. And I think what we talked about just a moment ago is my evidence. He's against LA, and it's James Neal. My second, I believe I would pick Dylan Larkin, just the way that the Red Wings have been playing the past couple games. I feel that he could be a better producer than Doan or Jagr, as both have been. I know Jagr is Mr. Jagr. He's the legend, but they're both a little bit older. Dylan has the speed. Those are my 2 picks.
Okay, so for me, it's tough. I would definitely play Jagr as my first choice. Jagr has been producing a lot more. He has a goal and 2 assists, +3, and he takes 14 shots in his past couple games. He's just on the top line, and he's been doing well, and they lean on him for guidance and his veteran experience. So Jagr's my first choice. Matchup based wise, Neal would probably be my second choice. Neal and Larkin have very similar stats, and they both only had an assist this season, and they're both -4, which is funny. Neal takes more shots though. He has a better matchup, so I would take him second, and then I would do Larkin, then Doan last.
Okay. So another thing to consider with these matchups is kind of see where you are in terms of what categories you're winning, which ones you're losing. Most of the names that I feel like we mentioned are in terms of point producing, whether we think they're going to be scoring a lot of goals and assists. But you might want to look into someone like Doan if you need more hits. That would be the only consideration I'd throw there with him. But otherwise, I'm right there with you guys. I really like Jagr's matchup against Toronto. James Neal, he's definitely going to be scoring on those weak LA goaltenders, and Larkin and that Detroit offense has been looking pretty good. So I'm right there with you guys. Let's move on to another Thursday matchup that involves some more right wings. We got Patrick Hornquist versus the New York Islanders, and so they'll be playing at home. We got Gallagher at home versus Tampa Bay, and Tarasenko at home versus Detroit. So a bunch of home games. Don't have to worry about the away matchups. Give me your top 2 between those guys.
I think we agree that you can't sit Tarasenko, so
I'll be right with you there.
I think you play Tarasenko, and then
He's a
between
must
Gallagher
start.
and Hornquist,
I know what I would do. I agree with Tarasenko. You can't sit that kid. I would pick Hornquist because of the matchup. I think the goaltender matchup is a little bit better in Tampa Bay. I know they both have 5 points. Gallagher and Hornquist both have 5 points at this point. But I am gonna pick Hornquist over Gallagher. Hornquist over Gallagher just purely because of the goaltender matchup there.
Yeah.
I think you're spot on there
I
with
think you would
those
have to
two.
agree. If I'm looking at it, it's a tough one. It's a tough one because, like we said earlier, the Canadians have actually been scoring the most out of any team in the league, which is surprising to me. But I would have to say Hornquist, yeah. So Tarasenko, Hornquist, Gallagher.
Yep.
All right, let's look at our last Thursday night choice options we're going through. This one, we only got two names for you. So we are trying to decide between either Scheifele at home versus Dallas or Barkov at home versus Toronto. Or away at Toronto. So this one's a little interesting because both are favorable matchups, as you can see, but we do have a home versus away in terms of the players at hand. But we also have Barkov, a first liner, and I'm pretty sure Scheifele's he's on second line, right? With liner, or is he up in the first?
I think he's centering in the second line. I will check it right now.
Yeah, double check that as you can. But yeah, Cam, kind of give me your thought process between these two. Give me one name you're confident with.
This is really hard.
Mark Scheifele is actually centering the first line with Drew Stafford and Patrick Laine. So
Wheeler's not on the first line?
Wheeler's injured.
Wheeler's on the second line. It says.
Isn't he injured? Or am I thinking of?
I think Wheeler's.
Brian Little's injured.
I'm
Little's
sorry.
injured.
I apologize, listeners. That was stupid of me.
That pretty much
Little
got-
is out. Wheeler's in. No, I'm picking Scheifele over Barkov because of the home advantage. I've always loved Scheifele. He's got 6 points right now to Barkov's 5. They're very close, but against let everything in, I got to pick Scheifele at home.
Yeah, it's
very close, but
it's very close. I like the line mates that he's got. He's got the talented line A on his line mate. But I think I'm gonna go against you on this one. I'm gonna say Barkov because he is on the top line like Scheifele, but he also has more veteran experience around him. Marchessault is doing very well with Jágr and Barkov. And I think they're just going to have to rely more on Barkov to get those points, and that's why I choose him. Honestly, right now, Scheifele has more points than Barkov, but I like the Florida Panthers as a better team, and going against Toronto, I think they're just going to light them up a little bit, but
Get the win there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that pretty much wraps up Thursday matchups that we wanted to look into. Let's hop into the busiest day of your fantasy hockey week, and that's Saturday. So we all know that this is where most of the decisions have to be made of that really guarantee you your win or loss that week. So this is where it might come down more to the different categories, whether you need more hits, more shots, whether it's penalty minutes, all the different stats. So let's take that into consideration when we look into these next couple of names. So let's start with the Saturday matchup of Braden Shen, who's coming back from injury to play alongside Wayne Simmons and Gaudreau, Giroux.
I wish.
I wish.
Shen goes in.
Yeah.
Put Shen.
But either ways, between Simmons and Giroux, I'm already loving that line. Would you take Shen versus Pittsburgh at home, or would you take Daniel Sedin at home versus Washington Capitals, or Pacioretty at home versus Toronto? So these are all at home games.
Yeah, this is a tough one for sure. So I would sit Daniel Sedin.
I was gonna say
that matchup is kind of horrific,
even
though it's at home and they're 4-0 or whatever. It's a tough one. With Shen coming back in the lineup with Simmons and Giroux, that line has been killing it. That's one of the only reasons I would consider playing him first. Pacioretty has the better matchup, but I pick Shen. I think that line continues to go hot and puts up a good fight against Pittsburgh.
See, I think
especially at home.
I think Pacioretty is number 1, and I think Daniel Sedin would be a number 2.
So you would sit Shen?
No, I'm going to play Shen, but I think Daniel Sedin, it's a mistake to
underestimate
the Vancouver Canucks at this point. You can't have a 4 or 5 point, 5 games with points. That's not a fluke, I don't think. However, they are versus Washington. So Pacioretty versus Toronto, that matchup, that's perfect for them. Shen versus Pittsburgh, I just agree that when you have the Dark Knight and Giroux, I can't come up with something funny for Giroux, but those two are great line mates. Obviously, CDN has his brother in Erickson, but I'm going to agree with you. Pacioretty and then Chen for me, and sitting Daniel. Yeah.
It is important to note that Chen did come back on the 20th, and he came back from injury, and he hasn't gotten a single point yet. So that is something that's very risky.
Yeah, 2 games, but
I do believe that he'll do better though.
Yeah, it takes time to recover from an injury and get your stamina back and get hockey ready to perform or perform on an NHL level.
And it's Pittsburgh's missing Letang still, so I see that as a better matchup than Washington at this point.
Yeah.
So
one other thing I want to note is Braden Chen will get you more hits than both of the players mentioned.
True. Yeah.
So keep that in mind when Saturday comes around. So let's move into a Saturday decision you might have to make between a couple of centers. I have 4 centers for you. So we're taking a look at Backstrom playing in Vancouver. Malkin is playing in Philadelphia. Joe Thornton will be playing at home versus Nashville. And Henrik Sedin will be playing at home versus Washington. So between those 4 players, I need to get 2 names that you guys would pick.
oh my goodness.
My eyes just initially go to Thornton, Malkin, and Backstrom. Unfortunately, those names take precedence over Sedin, even though his team has been doing better. For me, wow. This is very tough. I don't think you can sit Malkin still with Crosby still out. They lean on him too heavily, and he's just too good of a player. Malkin is first for me. And I think you have to play Thornton. He's been getting a point per game. He's getting tons of assists, and that's an important category, and he's just going to stack that. And Backstrom is a close third. He hasn't been producing as much as they want him to.
He only has 3 assists at this point.
He only has 3 assists. In any other situation, I would probably play Backstrom, but in this one particular, I'd play Malkin and Thornton. Sedin, I'm sorry, you're sitting on the bench.
Bench.
Yeah.
Just drop Heinrich. Don't even.
I gotta be honest. I would do Malkin number 1, and Thornton number 2. They both have 5 points. Malkin with 2 goals, 3 assists. Joe Thornton with all 5 assists. Backstrom has yet to perform. I also put that a little bit out on Ovi to not have more than 3 points at this point. But I'm gonna put Thornton number 1 because they're home. Malkin 2. Because they're away. Yeah. That's my decision.
Okay, there it is. That was definitely a tougher one.
Yeah.
But luckily, between all those players, it looks like Thornton, Henrik Sedin, Backstrom, you're guaranteed for some assists. So if you're falling behind in that category, you shouldn't be too scared going into Saturday. So let's move into a couple of other centers that we're looking at within some Saturday matchups. So let's talk about Giroux at home versus Pittsburgh, Austin Matthews playing away in Montreal, and Matt Duchene, who we were talking about, is starting to pick it up a bit, playing at Arizona. So he's playing the Coyotes. This one's the matchups. I would say Duchene definitely has the most favorable matchup. But all these players have a chance to produce. So what are you guys thinking?
I think I'm going to do a little. I don't know. Actually, I don't know if we're going to do the same thing, Eddie. But I am choosing Giroux first, Duchene second, and I'm sitting Matthews because of the matchups. Giroux has 6 assists.
Yeah, it's tough to sit Giroux. He's definitely.
They're at home. I know they're playing Pittsburgh, but I don't see Giroux getting anything less than at least 1 assist. Duchene, he's been amping it up. He's against Arizona with Mike Smith out. That's Louis Dominguez territory. But I just don't see Matthews outscoring either of them on Saturday.
I honestly completely agree. You can't sit Giroux. He's a must start. Giroux versus Pittsburgh, it's going to be a tough game for him, but considering he's been getting point per game with assists, you got to play him. He's going to get you the points. Matthews is a great alternative. It's hard not to sit him, especially he's so exciting to put in your lineup. He's someone you want him to do well, and he has that potential to just explode. So it's hard to sit him, but Duchesne has also been on a really good point streak. He's had 3 goals and 2 assists in his past 2 games. He's heating up hard ever since that just destructive hit that he took. So, Giroud, Duchesne, and Matthews for me. I agree. That matchup for Duchesne is really, really tasty and delicious. Gonna have coyotes for dinner.
Is it juicy?
It's juicy. We're not talking about Panthers today. But
I wish.
I know. I love seeing the UC.
No, I agree with you guys there. I think the main thing to note is Matthews is playing against Carey Price.
Always
And
a tough
if you're
matchup.
playing against Carey Price, then
Yeah.
your chances of scoring completely plummet.
Yeah.
So those are those 3. Let's go into another couple of centers. We were just loving the centers on Saturday. But we got Bergeron playing in Detroit. Eric Stahl is playing at home versus Dallas. And we got Jeff Carter playing in St. Louis. So it's a couple of centers for you guys right here. Kind of have an idea who I would pick, but let me give me your 2 cents.
I know mine.
Okay.
This is easier for me. Eric Stahl, then Bergeron, sit Carter. To me, that's kind of a no-brainer because of Dallas injuries and the goaltending situation. Eric Stahl's 5 points right now. Bergeron only has 1 goal, but he just came back from injury. I know he's at Detroit, but I have a lot more faith in Bergeron and the Bruins than I do in Carter and whatever the hell is in the net.
Yeah. In Bergeron, we trust. I'm playing Bergeron first. He's definitely got pretty good matchup with Detroit, especially playing with the Marchand. So I'm playing him first. Carter and Stahl, it's a tough one, very, very tough. Carter definitely has the worst matchup. But I think I'm going to play Carter over Stahl, and it's because he has Pearson back. He has a lot more chemistry with Pearson, and I think that line's going to start getting going, and they're going to have to, of course.
I'm worried a lot about plus-minus for Carter.
That's something I'm not worried about. I'm worried about the points, and so
He's +1 now, but I'm very worried about the Kings right now. I'm very shaky.
No, I totally agree with what you're saying with Eric Stahl, and he's been on a point streak too. So
it's very close.
It's very, very close. The matchup's better for Stahl. I like Carter more and his line mates more. So
Fair enough.
yeah.
All right, so we're gonna move into our last one right now. We've already talked about a lot of centers, so let's look into a couple of right wingers that we might have to make a decision on. So I have for you Tarasenko versus LA. I mean, Tarasenko's kind of a must start, but we'll look at these other matchups. Hornquist is playing in Philadelphia. We got Jay Wills playing in Vancouver, and Gallagher playing at home versus Toronto. So
Last time I told someone not to play Justin Williams, he scored a goal. So
Yeah, and it's the only goal he's had so far. I still think it's a fluke.
but it was just the one time I was like, don't play him, and then
pretty much if Eddie says don't play Justin Williams, you must play him.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Well, it's gonna be the trend, so you're gonna hear me say that a couple times.
Well, as far as right wingers go, I think you and I are going to agree that the no-brainer here is going to be Tarasenko versus LA.
Yes.
Now, for my second, it's definitely for me between Hornquist and Gallagher. I
Yes.
think I'm going to choose Gallagher because of how Montreal has been playing.
Yeah. Their play style, they're at home, and they're versus Toronto.
Yeah.
That's a tough one to say no to.
I think I got Tarasenko 1, Gallagher 2. Hornquist is such a close second. Such a close third. And Justin Williams can go score another goal for you if you sit him, but I don't think he's gonna do that. So
Yeah. Watch, sit Justin Williams and then take
8
note
goals.
of the Saturday game and see
Yeah.
if he gets points.
Start Justin Williams.
no, yeah. So Cameron, for me, my picks: Tarasenko 1, Gallagher 2.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with that too. I'm gonna say Tarasenko, Gallagher, Hornquist, and Jay Will last.
Well, you heard it here. Start Jay Wills every single game. Because
Yep.
Eddie said not to. But yeah, that wraps up our starts and sits for this coming week 3. I hope we gave you the fantasy insight that you look for when listening to the Puck Buddy podcast. And we're gonna wrap it up right there and just say, thanks for coming, thanks for listening, and look forward to the next podcast that's happening.